New information now about Edward Snowden. He is quoted in a Hong Kong newspaper moments ago saying that he is neither a hero or a traitor. Judge Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst, with me on this one. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
He goes on to say, I am not here to hide from justice. I'm here to reveal criminality. My intention is to ask the courts and the people of Hong Kong to decide my fate. You got a problem with him talking about that way in Hong Kong?
I think he's in Hong Kong because the reporter to whom he has been giving this information is based in Hong Kong, Glenn Greenwald. I don't have a problem with him talking that way. He's entitled to claim the protection of every court. I'm of the court of the land he's in. I wouldn't trust a court in China, but I'm not in his brain,
but
and I don't know what's motivating him.
He says he wants Hong Kong to decide his fate.
Well,
the story's all about Americans.
Well,
why isn't he in Washington, D.C. making statements like this?
He wouldn't be free to speak if he were in Washington, D.C. He'd be arrested if he were in Washington, D.C. So the court where he's located will decide his fate. Not his ultimate fate, but his next fate, that is, whether or not he'll be extradited. If he was in Iceland, the court in Iceland would decide whether or not he's extradited. Not his guilt or innocence on the ultimate charge, right, but whether or not he goes back to the U.S. against his will.
Based on what we know today, you think the U.S. government's going to go after him? Will they bring him home or not?
Yes, I think the U.S. government will go after him. In the opinion of the U.S. government, the Obama administration, and the intelligence community, he violated his oath to keep secrets secret. In his opinion, he also took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that is a higher obligation, and his obligation was to expose those secrets when it violated the Constitution. So he chose which oath to comply with and which oath not to comply with.
Okay, we brought you in to talk about Ron Paul, but since that news just broke, I wanted you to react
it's
to it
nice
immediately.
To be timely, Mr. Hemmer.
No, I appreciate the fact that you can react and turn on a dime. With Melissa Francis, our folks at the Fox Business Network, this is what Ron Paul said about the possibility of a drone attack on Snowden. Roll this and we'll listen to it.
I'm worried about somebody in our government might kill him with a cruise missile or a drone missile. I mean, we live in a bad time where American citizens don't even have rights and that they can be killed. But the gentleman is trying to tell the truth about what's going on.
What is going on? Hyperbole or what? Do you think he went a little bit too far?
Here's the problem. The president's use of drones to kill Americans is patently, clearly, and unconditionally unlawful. But the president has done it and has established his own rules for doing so. The Congress never established these rules. The courts never established these rules.
Lockheed's a good example, the American living in Yemen.
Correct. I think Ron Paul's fear is that the president might establish a new set of rules that will enable him to take Mr. Snowden out so he doesn't have to go through the messiness of a trial which would expose even more national security secrets.
ACLU says this: it is the equivalent of requiring every American to file a daily report with the government of every location they visited, every person they talked to on the phone, the time of each call, and the length of every conversation. It continues. The program goes far beyond even the permissive limits set by the Patriot Act and represents a gross infringement of the freedom of association and the right to privacy. Is that at the core of this?
That's at the core of this, and that's why you see Democrats as well as Republicans, people who voted for the Patriot Act, even one of the authors of the Patriot Act, wanting to revisit it now because they see the abuse that it brought about in the hands of the executive branch.
James Sensenbrenner, a Republican from Wisconsin, was on our program last week. He said this is a dragnet. You can't go out there and just collect all the information and keep it and hold it.
The whole purpose of the Fourth Amendment, the requirement for a search warrant with specificity, quote, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, close quote, a precise quote from the amendment, is to stop and prevent dragnets and fishing expeditions.
I think the problem the government has is they haven't explained it fully. All they say is, oh, it's been going on since 9/11. You should have known about it, right? I mean, even members of Congress were told they knew about it, and they've come out and said they haven't. The problem I see here is that in 2013, you used the example of terrorism. But if you're storing the information to infinity, what excuse do you use in 2023? Or 2033? Is it no longer terrorism? Is it your taxes? Is it your health records, your financial records, your politics? What is it?
The founders didn't have a problem like this, but they did mistrust an executive branch of a government with powers that it could be abused. And that's why they wrote a constitution to restrain the government. You and Martha just ran a great quote from the New York Times not too long ago. This proves, President Obama's abuse of this power proves that when unlimited power is put in the hands of the executive, it will be abused. What makes it unlimited? The lack of fidelity to the Constitution.
Judge, to be continued.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Anytime, Bill.
At ease, Counselor.
Thank you.
Here's
Very
Martha.